Seneca's Epistles to Lucilius. Epistle 4. On the study of moral philosophy, from which we learn to dismantle the fear of death, and also to dismantle the desire for wealth and grandeur. Persevere, Lucilius, as you have begun, and be as expeditious as possible, that, being once a self-regulator of a principled and well-informed mind, you may the longer enjoy it. There is pleasure indeed in endeavoring to regulate and improve the mind, but how much more exquisite is that pleasure which arises from the contemplation of a mind ever innocent and pure. Remember the joy you felt when, laying aside the vest and tunic, you put on the manly robe and was introduced to the praetor. Expect still greater joy when you shall have cast off all puerile inclinations, and philosophy has improved your character and ranked you in the class of men. Without the self-improvement of philosophy, we may pass our biological childhood, but while our characters retain the grievous fault, that childishness still remains. And what is worse, we may be old men in authority, but boys in vices and imperfections. Not only boys, but mere infants. Some are afraid of the most light and trivial things, and some of vain bugbears, and some are afraid of both. Philosophy remedies the faults in our character. If we pursue philosophy, reflective self-improvement, we will find that some things that we once dreaded are now less feared. Before philosophy, you might think that the ultimate evil is death. But after philosophy, you realize death is nothing. Death approaches. What then? Before philosophy, you might have been afraid of it. But after philosophy, you realize death is not an experience which continues for a long time. The ceasing of life happens in a moment. It no sooner comes than it is gone. Death is not an experience to be feared. Death is no experience at all. Nevertheless, you say, it is hard to bring your mind to relinquish the desire for life and accept the ceasing of life. Now consider this. Upon what frivolous occasions is the ceasing of life accepted by minds less virtuous than yourself? One hangs himself at the door of his cruel mistress, another breaks his neck from the top of a house to avoid the threatening wrath of his master, and another, when he has played the runaway, stabs himself to prevent his being carried home. Do you think that your virtue cannot as effectually dissipate the fear of death as these base cowards? Know that no man can enjoy life with serenity if he is continuously worrying how to prolong his life, and esteems as the greatest happiness merely the number of years he lives to see, and does not evaluate how virtuously he is living the present moment. Accordingly, make such daily meditations as will enable you, with perfect equanimity of mind, at any time, to accept the ceasing of life. Some minds, caught in desire, grab on to life so tenaciously as to embrace it with painful endurance, like those who, being carried along by a torrent, catch at briars or anything within their reach, be it ever so sharp. Most men are apt to waver miserably between the fear of death and the torments of life. They are unwilling to live virtuously and know not how to cease life virtuously. Therefore, render life pleasant to you by ceasing all worrying about it. No good condition can truly delight the enjoyer unless his mind be prepared against the loss of that condition. And no loss is easier to be borne than that which cannot be recalled by memory, or again expected to occur in the future. And death cannot be recalled by the memory, and never again occurs. The ceasing of life is not an experience to be feared. It happens in a moment. It is no experience at all, and it is to be accepted with equanimity when it comes, as it comes. Accordingly, consider and prepare your mind to wisely respond to all those fatal accidents of destiny which even those of the highest status and most social influence are subject to. Reflect and develop those principles of wise response which enable you to virtuously manage the ceasing of life as it approaches. Remember, no matter how high your status or how exalted your character, your life could cease at any time by the intention of any one, no matter how vicious and low they are. Consider that a fatherless child and a eunuch bore sentence against the life of Pompey and put it into execution. A cruel and insolent Parthian slew Crassus. Gaius Caesar commanded Lepidus to bow down his neck to the stroke of Decimus the tribune, and he did the same himself to the rake Chaerea. Fortune hath advanced no one so high as not to threaten him with the same treatment with which she had permitted him to treat others. Do not become complacent in conditions of present tranquility. A calm sea in a short time can become ruffled into a storm, and the ships that were dancing in safety upon the waves in a short time can become wrecked and swallowed up. Consider that a robber as well as an enemy may cut your throat, and supposing you are safe from any higher social power, life and death are at the will of any menial servant. If anyone is brave enough, aggressive enough, or violent enough, or insane enough, he can end your life at any time. Recollect the instances you have known of those who have fallen by domestic treachery, either by open force or insidious scheming. You will find that as many have perished by the resentment of slaves as of kings. Therefore, what avails it to you how much social status he has, or how socially influential he is, whom you are afraid of, if what you fear is in everyone's ability to execute, that is, to end your life? Do not look only to political rivals for danger. Remember, your life could be ended by a mosquito carrying malaria, or a poisonous spider or snake, or any wild beast predating. If you should be taken by an enemy, and he should command you to be led where he pleases, even to death, why do you deceive yourself and think this is the first time you are suffering this danger, which you have daily undergone? For I affirm that from the hour you were born, nature has faced you with its full range of dangers, even though you are ignorant of what those dangers were. In these and like considerations, which prepare your mind to accept with equanimity the ceasing of life, your mind should be regularly exercised. If, with a pleasing satisfaction, you would be relieved of the fear and worrying about those last hours of life, which make all the preceding years disagreeable with apprehension. Now, to conclude this epistle, be pleased to accept a sentence which this very day gave me no small delight, and which flower I likewise picked from another's philosophical garden. Magnae divitiae sunt lege naturae composita paupertas. Poverty measured by the law of nature is great riches. Now, do you know what this law of nature requires? Only not to hunger, not to thirst, or be cold for want of clothing. To expel hunger and thirst, there is no necessity of sitting in a palace and submitting to the supercilious brow and contumelious favor of the rich and great. There is no necessity of being protected by an armada of ships or of a camp full of soldiers. What our natural constitution needs is frequently everywhere to be found and attainable without much difficulty, whereas superfluities require the sweat of the brow. For these we are obliged to engage in artificial complications, are compelled to grow old in the field, and are driven to foreign shores. But a sufficiency of resources to maintain life and to live virtuously is much easier and simpler to achieve. Farewell.